The story begins with the protagonist of the story, the Baskerville family's hound, Bichir van Baskerville's head on a guillotine. He was a loyal hound for the family, but he had been sentenced to the guillotine for false charges of associating with the demon clan. As he faced his death, he made a vow that if he were to live again, he would not live as a hound again. Afterwards, Bichir woke up in a cradle, disoriented and confused. He thought he might be in hell, as his surroundings were loud and his body felt heavy. It looked like Bichir was currently at a nursery, as there were many children there, all of them crying. Meanwhile, the Baskerville family patriarch, Hugo Baskerville, was inspecting the children's cradle. He roamed around the room and noticed children crying, and he dismissed them as insignificant, and even referred to them as trash. However, when he approached Bichir, he noticed that the child was quieter than the others. Hugo ordered for Bichir to be moved to the cradle of swords, and his attendant obeyed without question. As Bichir lay in the cradle, he looked up at Hugo with pure hatred in his eyes. He knew that Hugo was the main culprit behind his false charges and subsequent execution. Bichir realized that he had been regressed to when he was a baby, and that he had lived his past life as a hound for the Baskerville family. Bichir had been born into an illegitimate family and had received training in a poor environment. He had been raised to be a loyal hound, willing to do any dirty work that was required of him in order to make the Baskerville family the best of the 7 families. Bichir had stayed loyal to the family and to Hugo because he had wanted to be acknowledged, but his loyalty had ultimately been repaid with a death sentence. The reason behind his execution was simple. He knew too much. Bichir swore that he would never live that life again and that he would take his revenge. However, with his newborn body, he knew that he couldn't do anything. Being moved to the Cradle of Swords was a good opportunity for Bichir to become stronger. Children born into the Baskerville family had to go through one trial called the Cradle of Swords. They were thrown into a maze of swords, and after going through that, they had to get to the Styx River to be examined for their talent. The Styx River was a legendary river that turned the bodies of children into iron. However, there was a limit to how many children it could affect, so being able to reach it faster was crucial. The only way to reach the Styx River first was to head straight out of the helix-shaped wall of blades, which was no easy feat. As Bichir crawled through the Cradle of Swords maze, he couldn't help but think about his past life. He had been ousted by his siblings and couldn't receive the effect he so desperately needed. But this time, things would be different. He was determined to monopolize the Styx River's blessing for as long as he could. As he made his way through the maze, he suddenly fell into the Styx River. The water seeped deep into his body and bones through his cuts, causing him intense pain. But he knew that he had to endure it for as long as he could. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away from him. Outside the maze, Bichir's attendants were shouting for him to come out. They were worried that he would die if he stayed underwater any longer. But Bichir was determined to hold on for as long as possible. Meanwhile, Hugo watched with expectation in his eyes. He asked the Baskerville family head butler John Barrymore how much time had passed since Bichir had gotten in the river. Barrymore responded that around 7 minutes had passed. Hugo laughed and said that Bichir might die. The attendants looked at him with worry, requesting the patriarch Hugo to save Bichir. Hugo called out to Bichir, telling him that he could come out of the water now. But Bichir was too busy absorbing the Styx River water to pay attention. He thought to himself that he couldn't give up this opportunity so easily. He needed to absorb as much as he could until the very end. But then he started to fall down as water entered his mouth. Despite the danger he was in, Bichir knew that he needed to endure it. He kept repeating to himself to endure, endure, endure. It looked like Bichir was about to drown, but Hugo pulled him out of the water with a smug smile on his face. He commented on how greedy Bichir was, even drinking the water from the Styx River. He then noticed that Bichir already had teeth, which surprised him. Hugo asked the head butler for Bichir's name, and he learned that it was Bichir van Baskerville. Hugo smirked and said that a very greedy son had been born. Bichir, who was still somewhat conscious, thought to himself that he needed to use this time to sharpen his canines in secret. He was determined to rip his master's head off when the time came, and he would do it with his own hands. The Baskerville family would disappear into history too by his own hands. Bichir van Baskerville was born as the bastard son of Hugo Baskerville, a renowned nobleman of his time. At the tender age of 8, it was apparent that Bichir possessed an extraordinary intelligence that far surpassed his peers. However, within the Baskerville family, he was considered nothing but ordinary, as he did not possess the direct lineage of the family's prominent bloodline. As Bichir grew older, he began to explore different fields of interest, eventually settling on the treacherous paths of assassination, espionage, and conquest. By the time he had reached the age of 20, he had already embarked on several missions that showcased his impressive skill set. But despite his achievements, Bichir still felt inadequate in comparison to those of direct lineage. At the age of 30, the gate leading to the demonic realm had opened, signaling the beginning of a terrifying invasion by the demon clans. Bichir, now a seasoned warrior, stepped up to defend his realm, engaging in battles that saw him slaughter monsters left and right.